welcome back to Afternoon Express. Now, there is nothing like a classic combo of steak and chips. Today, we are making a succulent picanha steak with chips served with a tangy bèarnaise sauce. Bring it on. First of all, Chef Jay, before people come for me on social media, did I even pronounce those correctly?
You were pretty...
Picanha?
Picanha and bèarnaise sauce.
Gotcha.
Now, I love steak and chips, Pali, because it can go anywhere from like being really comforting and really easy to being super fine dining. And we're sort of leaning towards the more fine dining approach with this picanha steak.
Lovely.
So you can see that it's a beautiful cut of meat. I mean, look at how gorgeous this is.
Chef Jay, I pride myself in being a Zulu girl who knows all about meat and steaks and types of cuts, but I've never heard of a picanha cut.
So it's not very widely used in South Africa, right? It's more towards the Southern American side. So Brazil, around those kind of countries that enjoy this kind of meat. So essentially a picanha, you can see it's a triangular shape. So this sits on the hind back section of the animal. So it sort of sits here, right at the top. So this sort of tops the rump that people would be more used to. The first things first, Pali, pat it nice and dry. And in fact, sometimes I leave my steak sitting out on the countertop, obviously away from any flies or anything like that. And that's sort of a natural drying of the meat. And what that does is the enzymes, the natural enzymes in the beef start breaking down those cell walls already. So that's a great way to start tenderizing your meat. Right, now the second thing is to score the fat. You can see as I score into that.
Yo, that's a thick piece of fat.
Thick piece of fat. So you could trim this down, ask your butcher to have it trimmed down. But then again, there are ways to cook this to ensure that it renders down enough that it's not ghastly when you put it in your mouth.
No, but I actually do not mind a lovely fatty piece of meat.
Too.
There's just something about it. I mean, growing up as a kid, I used to, you know, with my siblings, wait for who wants to kind of opt out of that fat, and I'd have it with the rest of my meal.
And you can see this is a whole piece of meat. Pali, you could portion this out as steaks, but I think it's so beautiful putting this whole onto the braai, serving your family, slicing it at the table. I think it brings such a beautiful, you know, experience to the meal.
So now my question for you, Chef Jay, is, okay, I completely understand being able to portion it into different steaks, right? So basically slicing it up. But if you were to put the whole chunk of meat in the oven or on the braai, how long would that take?
Well, not very long, Pali, because remember, there's not a lot of movement happening in the animal in this section of the meat. So there's not a lot of, you know, sinew, a lot of striations in the meat. So because of that, the meat itself will remain soft provided you cook it correctly. So we're not going to overcook it, right? So what I've done is I've put a dry rub. Now, I love to put a dry rub on the steaks. Because of the fat, you don't need a lot of oil, right? So I'm going to put this onto the fire or onto the braai. So I've used salt and pepper, best friends with steak. You can't go wrong with salt and pepper.
Talking about flavor combinations.
And then I've got a little mix of different spices here. It's like a Cajun rub in a sense. So I'm going to sprinkle a bit more. It's got some coriander seeds, very reminiscent of biltong in this rub. So we're going to put it down skin side first. Now
so the fat goes on first.
Now you'll be surprised that the pan is not smoking hot.
Yes.
Now the key to rendering out the fat is to start it on a very low heat. And as the heat increases, more and more of that fat is going to come out of the pan. So I'm going to increase the heat slightly now.
So this is a tactic.
This is a tactic, yes. So you could put it, you know, you've got to have control when you braai, right? It's not just about throwing things on the fire, guesstimating. You've got to really have control over the heat. So we're going to put it on to the fat side for about 3 to 4 minutes. Flip it over, same time on the other side, and then we're going to put it into the oven 180. 15 minutes per 450 grams to get medium rare. We've spoken about the bèarnaise sauce, right? So this is the sauce that we've got over here. Now, bèarnaise is basically a sauce that's made with clarified butter or ghee, right? And it's emulsified with egg yolks. So they sort of call this the baby sister to a hollandaise.
Because I was going to say, it looks like a hollandaise sauce. When I bit into it just now, I definitely taste the egginess of it. So very hollandaisey. So
similar to a hollandaise, but what's great about a bèarnaise is we put something called tarragon. Now, tarragon might not be a herb that you've seen, you know, very often. It does come in a dried form, so I want you to smell that.
Ooh.
So you can get the dried version at any supermarket, and of course you can get the fresh when it's in season. It's a softer, beautiful flavor, and that's what sort of differentiates the hollandaise from the specific one.
Listen, it is very pungent. As soon as I went in for a smell there, you definitely pick up all of those hints and notes of that herb. I can only imagine how it elevates the flavor of that bèarnaise sauce. And now it's time to slice it open. Look how perfectly done that is.
Beautifully pink. Now I'm gonna go with a bit of a chunkier piece here. And we've got to share the joy. This is what it's about, right?
Sharing is caring, definitely. And with a piece of meat looking this gorgeous, this succulent, and this tender, definitely paired with the tangiest, most tasty sauce, you definitely have a winning combination. But please do stay tuned for all the important ice cream soda float that we're going to be making shortly. That looks so good.